Hello everyone! Let's continue with the TeruShouEnnoTana storyline for a bit again, because I am finally getting into the parts that I had prepared for quite a long time already, and it's super fun to write. I know I'm saying it all the time, but it is true. I love writing this story, and especially the Daisho Tanaka interactions and relationship, which is exactly what this is going to be about. So yes, I was super excited to write this. Also, someone asked for Terushima Tanaka interaction, so you are also getting that a little bit in this. So let's go! As always, special thanks to my lovely patrons and all of you who subscribe and watch these videos. You are keeping this channel alive and going. Thank you very much, and I hope you will enjoy as much as I did. So, he is still in jail, right? Sawamura nodded, which, however, gave Daisho only a little to calm him down. It had been 2 weeks since the heart appeared, and yet the image was still firmly engraved into his mind, haunting his sleep ever since. The whole time, all 4 of them were on edge, waiting for Sawamura to come with some result. Daisho dreaded that more than he would like to admit, but knowing was always better than the uncertainty, right? Well, not by much in the end. I was there to check personally in case there was some mistake. He glanced at Daisho, giving him a sympathetic look. I can assure you he's still sitting behind bars without the option to go out on a walk or anything like that. Which means it had to be someone else who sent it. Who sent it, right? Not necessarily. They are monitoring his calls, but it's possible he managed to get someone to do the dirty work for him. Daisho shivered, suddenly feeling sick again. He didn't want to admit the possibility, tried to avoid thinking about his ex for as long as he could. But in the end, his past was always ready to bite him when he expected it the least. He flinched when a warm hand squeezed his shoulder, but then leaned into the touch when his brain caught up and recognized it was Enoshita sitting next to him. Have you found who that heart belonged to yet? A dark shadow crossed Sawamura's face. Yes, we linked a body to it yesterday. That's why I wanted to talk with you. Please spare us details if it's something gruesome. No worries, I can't tell you the details anyway since the investigation is still ongoing. I just wanted you to know. And to be careful since, you know, since that person already killed someone. Before he realized it, he was pulled into a firm embrace. He sagged into Enoshita's arms, biting his lip to not let out any of the sounds threatening to get out of his mouth. He couldn't hide the trembling of his hands, however, nor the mist entering his eyes. All he wanted was to be left alone, to leave his past behind him and live contentedly with his boyfriends, without the constant threat hanging above his head. And yet, here it was again, the invisible yet very present creeping threat, just waiting for any moment of weakness to pounce on him. Is there something we can do to help? No. Just be careful and trust us if you can. I know it's not going to be easy to just sit and wait, but for now, that's the best course of action for you. I'll let you know if we find something new. Daisho nodded absent-mindedly, only barely registering the others saying goodbye and the soft clap of the main door. This is a nightmare. Sugu. He looked up, startled by the voice despite knowing well it was Terushima speaking. It will be okay, you will see. We won't let anyone hurt you again. Doesn't matter if it's your ex or someone else. Yeah, we will figure something out. But what if not? If it really is him doing all this, even by proxy, he's crazy. What if he hurts you because of me? Hey, shh, don't you dare to finish that. But you were going to say something along the lines of, I'll leave to keep you safe, weren't you? Nothing like that. As if we let you be alone now that there's some psychopath after you. Yuji. Shush, we'll figure something out. Until then, let's just be extra careful. Daisho wanted to argue further, too scared about his boyfriend's health not to. But seeing Terushima's determined expression made the words die off on his tongue. Besides, it wasn't like he could control their decisions unless he ran away and hid somewhere. And if he was honest with himself, he wouldn't be able to get through this alone. A heavy sigh followed by a groan turned his attention to Tanaka, so far sitting opposite him, his expression unreadable even when their gazes met. Okay, then, if it really is your ex somehow, what exactly are we dealing with? Daisho froze, his throat tightening. Are you sure it's a good idea to talk about it right now? Well, we have to talk about it at some point if we want to do something about this whole situation. I know, but right now? It's fine, Chica. I can... He opened and closed his mouth a few times, but couldn't formulate a single word. Desperate, he hid his face in his palms, a strangled whine escaping his otherwise clogged throat. He wanted to tell them. He wanted to get everything out, even for the price of bringing back all the awful memories. He wanted to tell the story of all the scars lining his skin, recount all the bruises that disappeared a long time ago, the broken bones that already grew back together. But whenever he tried, his voice betrayed him, leaving him trapped in the invisible cell of his memories that stole his breath and blurred his vision. Like right now. Just how pathetic could he get? The arms around him tightened, returning him to reality. Suguru, breathe. It's okay if you don't want to talk about it. Just say so. We won't force you. He threw Tanaka a glare, though it didn't seem to have the usual effect now, as Tanaka just threw his hands up in apparent frustration, and Daisho instinctively cowered. Sorry. Don't be sorry, just communicate. If you don't want to talk about it, fine, but I would much rather know what he's capable of. I'm trying, I swear. It's not that easy. I'm sorry. Stop apologizing all the time. Jeez, no wonder that guy took advantage of you when you are so meek about everything. Daisho winced as if Tanaka physically slapped him and instinctively curled into himself, trying to be as small as possible. He tried to resist back then. He tried everything in his power and it still wasn't enough. No matter how much he fought, it was never enough. Just how pathetic he was when Tanaka had to call him out on it. Another apology already resting on his tongue. He flinched when Terushima no less than growled next to him. What did you just say? He got up, his fists clenched and whole posture tense as if he was second before throwing a punch, a wildfire burning in his eyes as he shifted to stand in front of Daisho. Are you even listening to yourself? Yuji. What did I say? It's true. If Suguru expressed some boundaries, maybe he wouldn't... Are you serious? You can't be that dense, can you? Yuji, it's fine. No, it's not fine. Nothing from what happened to you was your fault, and I won't let anyone say otherwise. He turned back to glare at Tanaka, his teeth bared. No matter who it is. I didn't say anything like that. Oh yeah? Maybe if you were acting this way, you wouldn't have to go through hell? Are you actually listening to yourself? How is that different to telling a woman it was her fault she got assaulted? That's not what I meant. Then what the fuck did you mean? Enough! The three of them jumped as Enoshita's voice echoed through the living room. Daisho pulled away a bit, barely able to stop himself from instinctively shielding his head. There was barely any change in Enoshita's face. He wasn't gritting his teeth like Tanaka usually did, nor did he ball his fists like Terushima. But for the ever-so-gentle physician to raise his voice like this, he had to be furious. The two fell silent immediately, both averting their eyes to the side or floor as Enoshita continued to stare them down. You think yelling at each other will help anything? Yuji was yelling. And you were victim-blaming. Maybe unintentionally, but you were, so shut it. Tanaka as if shrunk, mumbling a quiet sorry, soon followed by the same from Terushima. A new wave of respect for Enoshita rose in Daisho's chest. Truly, if anyone had the power to settle disputes between the two with just a few words, it was Enoshita. But with the admiration, a much more painful wave of guilt crashed into him, stealing the remaining self-control from him. He was the one who was at fault for the argument. They would be fine if it wasn't for him. They wouldn't have to argue. They wouldn't have to strain their relationship if it wasn't for him. No wonder Tanaka didn't want him around from the very beginning. And it was just a question of time before Terushima and Enoshita would start to feel the same. The thought closed his throat, choking him with his own breath. Sorry. It was too late for him to stop himself when he was reminded his constant apologizing was what ticked Tanaka off in the first place. But he couldn't otherwise, not when he messed up so much. He got up and rushed into his room, feeling like the worst coward when he closed the door behind him and slid down on the floor. His chest heaved, but despite that, his lungs weren't getting enough air for quite some time already. Panic dug its ice-cold fingers into his heart, quickening his heartbeat and making his head spin. If he could just erase his memories, everything would be fine. His partners wouldn't have to walk around him on eggshells, and everything would be okay. He startled when his phone suddenly vibrated on the bedside table, reminding him he had an evening practice to attend. Taking a few shaky breaths in a fruitless attempt to put himself together, he stood up on unsteady legs and started to change into something more suitable for outside. He tried to avoid looking at the numerous scars on his torso, every single one of them reminding him of the pain he felt when they were made. When his ex made them. A choked sob tore from his throat, his eyes as if intentionally straying to the one of the deepest which spread over his whole side. Then on the one on his stomach, his sternum, his abdomen, his thighs. All pale but still visible, ever-present reminders of what had been. The remaining air disappeared from his lungs, the sudden weakness knocking him back on the floor. He tried to catch onto something, but only succeeded in pulling everything down from the nightstand. Nothing changed even after all those years. His past was still holding him in his clutches, and he could do nothing to escape. Just like before. The house felt eerily quiet. Not that it was silent, but quiet. Since Enoshita dragged Terushima out to go shopping, to do at least something useful that day, in his words. There was nothing to distract Tanaka from the heavy weight that settled around his chest, and which only intensified every time he glanced towards the door leading into Daisho's bedroom. Reflecting on his own words, he understood why Terushima jumped in to protect Daisho. While he only meant to push his boyfriend to start expressing boundaries, he definitely could have worded it better. Much, much better. Unfortunately, he couldn't do much about it now other than apologize profusely after Daisho settled enough to come out of the room and hope he was going to be forgiven. Great job, Ryunosuke. Great fucking job. As if he wasn't scared of you enough before. The thought burned like hot iron. He didn't even manage to work on what was making Daisho scared of him in the first place, and he was already adding new reasons for him to flinch away. Way to go, really. Sighing, he closed his eyes and leaned back on the couch, trying to think of some way to convey his apology without adding salt to the injury. He had to figure something out, otherwise he risked losing Daisho for good. And that was something he didn't want to even imagine. But what to? He jumped when a hollow thud reached his ears, soon followed by a sound of something falling. All coming from Daisho's bedroom. He was sure he never moved as fast as in that moment as he rushed to the door before coming to a halt in front of it. Was it a good idea to just barge into the probably only sanctuary Daisho had in the house after what happened? His indecisive thoughts were cut short by muffled sounds Tanaka was all too familiar with. The strangled gasps for air mixed with sobs grew stronger the moment he opened the door. The sight of his boyfriend curled on the floor in only his underwear, with just a t-shirt clenched in his hands, staring his heart open. Suguru. Daisho screamed and scuttled away from him until his back hit the bed. His eyes, much wider than Tanaka would like, darted around as if looking for a way to escape. Or hide. Suguru, I'm not... Don't come closer! Tanaka froze in his tracks. Despite the actual words, Daisho's voice sounded more like a desperate plea, the fright and pain just stabbing the invisible dagger deeper into Tanaka's guts. But that wasn't the thing that horrified him. Oh God. A choked sob tore from Daisho's throat as he jerkily tried to cover himself with the t-shirt. Don't look, please. Tanaka looked down immediately, worried that doing anything else would just make things worse. I won't, I promise. He didn't have to anyway. The image of the various scars lining Suguru's body was already firmly engraved into his memory, constricting his chest and turning his stomach with both horror and fury. He knew Suguru's past was bad. They all knew. But he had no idea it was this bad. How could someone even do this to you? He dropped the thoughts of murder for the moment and instead focused on the fact his boyfriend was in pain and suffering. Can you tell me what you need right now? I'll do anything if it helps, I promise. I'm sorry. It's okay. You don't need to be. You're safe, I promise. He knelt down and slowly inched forward, holding back so he didn't make any sudden movement or speak too loudly. The flow of sorries didn't stop, only turned more strangled with every repetition as Daisho started to run out of breath. Not good. Can you be any more useless? Think, damn it! If Chika was here, he would know exactly what to do. But Enoshita wasn't here. He was the only one who could help right now. Despite his earlier promise, he looked up and locked his eyes with Daisho's, making sure he was looking only into them and nowhere else. Suguru, please listen. I need you to take a deep breath. Just one, okay? Like this. He felt a bit silly for doing the overdramatic breathing, but if it was going to make sure Daisho didn't faint on him, he would gladly throw in a complete Shakespearean play. To his relief, Daisho took a shaky breath. Shorter than ideal, but it was a start. Okay, good. Can you do one more? Just like before. Clutching the t-shirt as if it was the only shield between him and complete breakdown, Daisho followed his example with hitched, hiccupy breaths. However, tears still streamed down his face, and his whole body still trembled as if he was battling hypothermia. Alright, you're doing great. Continue, okay? Just breathe and try to slow down a bit, okay? What now? Think. Can you tell me 5 things you see? Daisho visibly hesitated at the request, but then his eyes quickly darted around, always coming back to Tanaka as if he wanted to check if he still wasn't looking at the scars. Or to make sure I'm not planning to do something to him. Bed. Desk. Plushies. Books. You. Awesome, you're doing great. How about some things you can hear? I don't know. Shh. It's okay, take it slow. Daisho's eyes fluttered close for a second or two, then again for a few seconds more, and then his grip on the t-shirt finally loosened a bit. My breath. Rain. Your voice. Tanaka smiled, his heart swelling for being included in both instances in some way. Perhaps it was self-centered of him to think that, but he hoped it meant Daisho didn't think of him as a danger anymore. That's it, you're doing great. Some things you can touch, maybe? T-shirt. He let his hand slowly fall on the floor, his fingers curling around the carpet hairs. Carpet. He hesitated, a visible shiver running through his already trembling body, and then, finger by finger, he started to inch his hand over the carpet towards Tanaka's. Tanaka stayed still, waiting, a light jolt running through his hand when the gentle fingers brushed against his skin. You. Barely holding himself back to not pull him into a hug immediately, Tanaka bit hard on his lip and nodded, pressure building behind his eyes. Yeah, I won't go anywhere, I promise. Unless you want me to. To his immense happiness, Daisho shook his head before he curled more into a ball. Still keeping eye contact while moving slowly, Tanaka reached on the bed for one of the fluffy blankets they bought Daisho for Christmas and pulled it over Daisho's shoulders. Alright, keep breathing, okay? Hold on to me if you need to, or tell me what you need. I'll do it. Just stay here, okay? Don't go back to where you were before. Please. Daisho's eyes glossed over once again as he gave a jerky nod, pulling the blanket closer to his body. Tanaka stayed as he was, carefully returning the tiny caresses of his hand, while his mind raced to find some solution to the new situation. He pushed the cup with hot chocolate to Daisho curled on the chair, earning a tiny nod of thanks, before taking a seat opposite. Daisho was still a pitiful sight, even now when he somewhat unwrapped himself from the ball he made himself into before. At least he wasn't trembling or crying anymore, but the look in his eyes was still far from calm, and the way he watched Tanaka told him the fear was still very much present in Daisho's mind. How do you feel? Daisho paused before sighing, his gaze falling on the cup in his hands. I don't know. Tired, I guess. His shoulders tensed as he cowered. I'm sorry. No, please, don't apologize. It wasn't your fault. Just mine. Jeez, how much more stupid can I get? This can't continue, not like this. He hesitated before speaking again, unsure if he wasn't making the biggest mistake he could. Suguru, what do you say we go out together this week? Daisho blinked in surprise, his lips parting. Why so sudden? Sorry, I know it's not the best time now, but it just occurred to me that we haven't been out together yet. Like, just the two of us. If you want that, of course, you can say no, that's fine. But I think it could be nice to relax a bit after what happened today. It was a risk. After all, he was the one who hurt Daisho so much he broke down. Though it would be a risk even if today didn't happen, he was painfully aware of that. But he had to try. He had to do something to make this better. And hopefully make their relationship stronger. Daisho seemed to think about it for a long time, his hands clenched around the mug as if it were his anchor. And then... Okay, sounds good to me. A huge boulder fell from Tanaka's heart. He could make this work. He had to make this work. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Again, I have to apologize if I sounded a bit different than what you are used to. My job is not doing me any favors in terms of my lingering sickness, okay? I'm still rasping a bit. Anyway, part 2 to this, kinda coming later. It's not written yet, but I have an outline. I'm not sure when it's going to come out, but hopefully it's going to be still in January. It should be. Either way, they will be dealing with all this, so fingers crossed it's going to be interesting. Also, I will start to work on the other project I was talking about on the community tab. So if you're interested in that, look out and check the community tab from time to time. I will be posting information about it there. If you have any requests or ideas, the request form is linked in the video description. See you next time.